In the spring of 2021, 4 district teams piloted new blueprint tools and resources, including a team from Lawrence Public Schools. The blueprint team included educators at the classroom, school, and district levels and focused on exploring issues and planning for improvement at the high school level. The team collaborated virtually through modules 1 and 2 in initial implementation sessions. Laurie Hartwick, the English learner facilitator in Lawrence Public Schools, tells us about the team's experience.
I learned a lot about how the team was composed of many different perspectives and views on what should and could be done and what the problems were. So once we were in the process of trying to establish, what our goal was, what our primary drivers were, all of this came together with everybody coming in from a different point and trying to build more of a consensus on what is it that we really need to focus on. So for me, that whole process was beneficial because we had 12 or 13 people from teachers to administration to deans to crisis paras, guidance counselors. And it just revealed to me, if this is how it is in every school, because we just focused on one grade level, if this is how it is in every school or every grade level, it's huge, the amount of work that has to be done to bring everybody on board with the vision and the blueprint framework and sort of systematically try to implement the blueprint to make it work for our English learners. Definitely knew what our problem statement was. We felt that our English learners were not meeting target on the access and that course rate failures were high for this particular subgroup. So we were trying to relate those two in some way. And so that led to the goal of increasing our pass rate in courses. But this became not necessarily contentious, but a really good place where a lot of disagreement came out. And also, what data do we use? What are we actually going to focus on? And so I think it became a rich discussion because we had to think of a way, what is really important, what is most impactful. Everybody had a different take on what the change practice could be. But in the end, through our collaborative process, it really came down to most folks believing that all teachers need support in developing their skills and working with multilingual learners. So it's not just whether I have an endorsement in SEI or whether I have this license or I've worked here and I know this group of students and this kind of thing. It is more of, let's just assume we all have English learners, multilingual learners, and we do in our entire district, and that we need to consider them as equally as we consider our content and the other students in the classroom. So how do we do that? And it came down to the biggest change practice that would have probably the most significant impact was supporting teachers to develop those skills and approaches in working with English learners. And of course, that took on, well, is it instructional strategies? Is it, building culturally responsive approaches and changing mindsets and all that? So that involved a lot too. But that's where we ended up at the end of the pilot. I'm hoping that just the discussions that occurred in that process have raised others' awareness about teaching and learning with multilingual learners. One member of the team was an ESL teacher. None of the others were. And so I think that they all gain new perspective from listening to each other and what it means, and not just instructionally in the classroom, but in the culture of the school, and how does that impact guidance? How does that impact our paraprofessionals? So I'm hoping that those rich discussions stay with the participants. As a matter of fact, I had one participant text me last night about a comment that another teacher made and how she was frustrated with it. And it stemmed back from a conversation we had during this discussion as a collaborative group. So that was pretty interesting to me that she's still sort of running with the banner of, how can we promote change? I'm also hoping it's broader, deeper, and it will take more time, but that the process we used and work with TLC through the modules and with the blueprint, that I can expand it more in some ways with more schools in the district, but especially at the high school level, because the team that worked on the pilot implementation was a 10th grade team. And I was able to share some of what we did with one of the ESL leaders at the high school. So she will work with her group of ESL teachers that represent the different grade levels at the high school and try to include some more of that blueprint components into what their work will be about, which is, again, making the high school comprehensive in how it approaches teaching and learning with English learners. One of the ones that we used as a team was the driver diagram, in which we sort of identified what some of the root causes were and what the primary drivers would be, and try to put that together so that it led towards our change ideas. It was through that we definitely saw that a lot of what we would like to do would be competing with valuable time and resources from other initiatives that were going on. And again, it allowed discussion on how we could get around that. But, you know, we do have times where teachers can collaborate. So then it becomes a matter of committing to this type of collaboration for this purpose and using blueprint tools in different ways. It is very flexible. And usually we perceive things that come from the state as being top down and rigid, and you have to do it one way. But this framework is very flexible. And I found working with the team here, and now we have it expanding to a second team, that teams can identify specific areas of the framework that they want to focus on or use for tools as they set about their goals and implementing change practices. And that that's what's valuable about the framework, is it's flexible and it can meet the local context. Because as I think about, here we are at the high school, but how can I expand it to the other schools in the district? It will need to be flexible enough for me to bring it to other teams, other schools, other grade levels, so that they can use it. And they're going to come up with something different, a different way to use it than the high school.
Learn more about the Blueprint modules and initial implementation resources by visiting the Blueprint Planning and Implementation page on the Office of Language Acquisition's website.